right. Happy Monday. Woo.
Happy Monday.
Woohoo.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files, the series for anyone who manages people, processes, or projects, or other things for a living. I am Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I'm Christian Buckley, founder of Collab Talk, and welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I explore management and leadership topics from the perspective of what not to do.
Yeah, and today we are going to dive into, from the underwater image.
Yes, I know. Well,
I just want to clarify that for our users.
We are very proud of the image that at the beginning of the, just say it. Sharon, good job on that one. Yeah.
So today we're going to dive in to a really common management mistake, assuming that your top performer will automatically make a great leader. It's a super easy trap to fall into. Maybe, for example, someone's doing just absolutely incredible work. They're consistently exceeding expectations. Obviously, the next logical step is to give them a team to lead, like let them run the whole thing, right? But the skills that make somebody amazing at their job and doing what they do does not always translate directly to being great at leading.
Right. It's like assuming that your best player on your team will be your best coach at the end. Like sometimes that works. There are a lot of player coaches that are out there. But sometimes you end up with a frustrated team and a burned out manager who never really wanted the role in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, mostly, the problem is not the person, it's the system.
Very Deming. That's a very Deming statement right there.
Statement.
System and optimize the system, Sharon. Okay.
Right. But so many organizations promote based on performance. But they don't look at like holistically. They don't understand the whole thing. They just base, okay, you're a rock star performer. We're going to promote you up. They don't bother to ask them, would you like to be a manager or leader? They don't qualify them for leadership characteristics. They definitely don't train them for leadership, right? They just say, you're fantastic at what you do. You should obviously be a manager or a leader, and they promote them up.
Well, they might not even give them any other path but. So if they want that raise, if they want to continue growing, if they want to stay in the company, they have to take on that. I've written an article years and years ago out on LinkedIn called the myth of the well-rounded employee. This idea that employees have to be good at everything. It's the same concept as here. Like you take your best technical expert, you pull them away from everything that they love and drop them into a management role with no training, no mentorship usually, and no real support. And then you act surprised when they aren't still the golden child doing all those things. There's definitely a career track for managers, and there are plenty of people that come from a technical background and they love people management. They want to move into that. But there's a skill set out there and not everybody is chalked up to do it.
Yeah, it's the classic, sink or swim approach. We clearly know that guy was like underwater and
again with the water. I know he's getting his hands. It's very on point. Yes.
It's very unfair to everybody, right? Because essentially you're just throwing them in the deep end saying, hey, you going to make it or not? And ultimately what ends up happening is the new manager feels overwhelmed, the team feels unsupported and not led well. And then everybody, including leadership, is like, what happened? I thought they were supposed to be this amazing star player. And everybody just kind of wonders why performance is slipping.
Yeah. Maybe a simple way of things like it. You might be getting straight A's in shop class because you have a talent, engines, motors, can do stuff. You're very advanced in that. And then saying, oh, you're straight A student, drop in computer science. Like, nope. They are very different things. Again, people that have an aptitude for leadership positions and enjoy that aspect of it. And there's those that don't. There's nothing wrong with being an individual contributor.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with it at all.
Yeah, it's why and I think I've talked to you about this, but I was part of when I was at Microsoft, I was part of the Management Excellence Community, MEC. And I was actually part of the MEC leadership team because Microsoft loves acronyms. So MELT, the Management Excellence Leadership Team. I was the MEC evangelist. Shocking,
Nice.
I know.
Nice.
So, but what I really loved about that program while they were practicing it, and Microsoft, of course, has obliterated it. So running it for 15, 20 years, and they've kind of killed it. But they sought after trying to correct this problem culturally by seeking after people that there were some people in there that said, like, they even admitted in some of the trainings we're sharing, they're like, I wasn't very good at my job, but I was really good at motivating people. I felt like I liked the management, the operational and the leadership side of things, and was good at it. And so I found a place. And so they're professional managers. And so, that's why I think with all this, developing leaders should be intentional. It's not an accident. It's not something you automatically do because you've been there the longest. You need to identify the traits that actually predict success in managing others, like the EQ, that emotional intelligence, good communication skills, having empathy, actually caring for people. Sharon, I don't know if you knew that. That's a skill.
It's a skill. It is definitely a skill.
And then you have to have technical knowledge in a technical role. You have to have subject matter expertise in that. But your job is to find success through others, not necessarily as a doer of the thing.
Yeah. And just as importantly, and the mature organizations that I've been at really do this well, like you were mentioning, with the Excellence Leadership Program or Management Program. Any sort of company that has a clear path for development of leaders, some sort of a leadership program, mentorship opportunities or mentoring rings, coaching, things like that, can have a really big difference on, number one, identifying the right people. Number two, weeding out the people who maybe aren't a good fit for that program early on, but also supporting the ones that are, and making sure that the people that you're growing into leaders are the right people, not just the rock star performers that are good at what they do.
I remember learning about in grad school, there was IBM, 3M, a bunch of other big companies that went and were very intentional on creating individual contributor tracks that led up to, I don't know what the senior principal, that there was a technical track standalone so that it's like being a vice president over, a division, but from a technology standpoint, and then the management track with the traditional roles. And I think that it's great to have those paths so people can kind of envision their future, because so that you don't lose your best people. Plus, not everyone wants to manage people, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are some people. I had a manager, my last manager at the former company, that should have never been in charge of other human beings ever, but really good at operations, knew what she was doing in operations, like in the business side of it, and should have been in that operational role, not in a leadership role. So some of your best employees will stay your best employees if you give them ways to grow without forcing them into a leadership or management role.
Yeah, 100%. I think recognizing and supporting both paths. And, even we talk about this like business analyst to project managers. You don't have to grow up to become a project manager. You don't, a
BA is not a junior PM, right? A BA is not a junior PM. That's a mistake that's made all the time.
Yeah. Exactly. I think, supporting the path that somebody's going to be on and allowing them to develop and mature and upskill does not mean that they have to become a manager. They don't have to become a leader. Maybe they are a master at whatever technical area that they're in. They're a master in that IC role. But doing that for people who want to do that, and then offering leadership or management, upskilling and all of that, and growth for the people who want to do that, having both of those paths, in my opinion, 100% is how organizations keep talent engaged, and also sets up a really strong team for your organization.
I think this one's really going to hit home for a lot of folks. This is one that I think everybody has an opinion on. So it should be an interesting conversation as always. Throughout, if there's anything we don't cover, if there's a scenario, a point, some advice that you have in your experience, share it in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Follow us out on YouTube / Project Failure Files. You can find us out on social as well. So, we'd love to hear from you. So please comment.
All right, let's get started with some definitions.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first thing, the referring to mistaking star performers for star leaders, it's that assumption, as we've stated, that someone who excels in their role will automatically succeed as a manager. They may be pleasant, they may get along with everybody, all those things. If you've not talked to them, if you just make that assumption, and it could be that they are, an introvert displaying as an extrovert, that it actually wears them out emotionally, mentally, to have those interactions, be out there to turn it on for that, to flip the switch. But being great at doing the work doesn't automatically mean you be great at leading people who do the work. So leadership is not just a promotion. It's a completely different profession. So you move from achieving results yourself to helping others achieve theirs. And that shift can take skill, patience, and a lot of self-awareness as well. I mean, there's I see managers that were good when they turned it on, but were not self-aware. They weren't kind of present, and so they seemed aloof. They seemed disconnected. When they turned it on, when they focused, they were good, but it wasn't consistent. And so that's something that's you also have to watch for.
Yeah, you think about people who've been doing what they've been doing, especially for a longer time, 10, 15, 20 years sometimes. And you make this assumption that because somebody's good at something, that they're going to be good at everything.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, it's not about ambition or talent. It's about misalignment with the role, because we're saying because they're good at something, they're obviously going to be good at something else. And that's like you said, if you take them out of this role and put them in a different role, I mean, they may or may not want to do that. But there is, even if the capability is there, even if the raw talent is there, even if the natural inclination is there, there's still going to be some upskilling, and there's still going to be some change, and there's still going to be a need for them to be coached into that role, even if they are wanting it and have the aptitude for it.
Yeah. Organizations, they make a critical mistake when they assume that excellence transfers across roles. The best performer in one context, but even in a technical role, and we work in technologies, that's why we always reference technology. We have lots of clients that aren't tech companies, but we work with them to do tech things. So we see all sides of this. But you might have a strong aptitude in one area of the business, and then not be good in the other, and not enjoy it. And maybe over time you can become competent, but it's not like your skill. It's not your craft. It's not your space. That's one of the reasons that I love organizations that allow you to go and shadow different roles to learn about that. And sometimes that's like, hey, this would be really cool, and I could do this, and I could do this better than them. But or just to be like
1 day view, you
right.
can totally do their job.
Of course, yeah. I mean, other times gives you perspective to know, like, oh, that's awful. I'd never want to do this again, and I will be more patient when you're not responding because you're dealing with this.
I feel like that every time I watch How It's Made. I don't know. Like, I know my son loves to watch that show, and every time I watch How It's Made, I'm like, oh, I would not make a good factory employee. Like, I really value our factory employees.
Well, one of the greatest compliments I ever had after leaving the company was one of my former direct reports, who was promoted to a manager. We were having lunch and kind of catching up about 6 months later. And she said, I never realized how much crap you were shielding from us. I'm like, Yep. I said, it's every day, isn't it? She's like, it's every day.
Yep.
She's like, I don't know that I like this, that I can do this. And it was her first management role, at any company. And I told her, I said, my experience has been in multiple management roles. I said, there's definitely companies that have a culture, they do it the right way. I said, I'm sorry. I said, for 2 years, I buffered. That's all I could do. But, what a great compliment, though, a way to say thank you.
That's a good entry into the project failure pile.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, think of the misalignment here, and here, I've had this specific experience in seeing companies that have done this, and I've even had conversations with some people that were being promoted that were freaked out. They were like, I didn't want to do this. It's like it's the only thing I could do to move up, and it actually expedited them to leave the company. Yeah. Because it wasn't a fit. They wanted to get back into a team lead, but really where they were still 75% of their work was individual contributor. So they were on it. It was like a peer led organization. So this person loved that. And I would say that all the time. It's like, look, I'm your resource here. I work for you guys. And my job is to unblock you, go and negotiate things, shield you from things. What do you need so you can go get your work done? That's how I treated that.
Yeah.
And so I always preferred that as well. It's like, look, we're peers. We're all in here. You've been here longer. You're in this job, but this is your role. But you hired me to do this job. Now let me do this job.
Exactly.
You're thinking of other cultural impacts from that. You think of that, these new managers that come in, how overwhelmed, unprepared, disconnected that they feel, depending on how much training they're provided. It's one of the things, when I was at Microsoft, they had this MEC, and there was a series of leadership development and training classes, thankfully, but it still wasn't open to every division. It wasn't a universally accepted practice that new managers needed to network and have a support network behind them and get trained on being managers, which is just sad to think about. How could you not think that they need training on that?
Yeah, I think, the new manager or, the new leader, manager, whatever role they're in, I think, they feel definitely alone, overwhelmed. They have no idea what to do. They might also, and I think about this a lot, especially as we promote people up from within, when you're peers with a certain team or a certain group, and then you become promoted. Now, all of a sudden, there's a rift that happens in a lot of the relationships.
There's been some times where it was clearly that person was, they deserve it. They're the right person.
In a good culture, I think we promote people up. In a healthy culture, yeah, we promote people up. We support that. Everybody's happy. But I think in an unhealthy culture or a dysfunctional culture, especially, we promote somebody up, and all of a sudden now this peer has moved into this different role, and now a lot of people become resentful, or that person can start having a little bit of ego or arrogance that comes along with it, and it can create a rift between this new leader and the team. And so now you've got, teams that are frustrated because they're like, this person got promoted up, but they're not a good manager and they're not a good leader. They're just a boss now, right?
Right. Yeah, that's why, again, there needs to be, even if you're going to do that, there needs to be a process, whether you're bringing somebody in from the outside or, or moving them up internally. I think when you promote somebody, when you move somebody in that role who isn't ready for that leadership, you don't just risk their success. You risk the team's overall morale, to your point. Communication breaks down.
You lose your star player.
Right. You have lost a person there because that manager now, you can't just double their workload. You're doing all the management plus keep doing what you used to do. It's no, you lose them as that star performer. And so that's an additional problem there. But then suddenly you have this top performer who's questioning their own value because they're not succeeding in this new role. So everybody loses in that equation.
Yeah. Well, and then ultimately, as everybody else watches this happen, right, they're like, oh, well, you almost you're selling the wrong story, right? Because now it's if I get good at my job, are they going to make me be a manager? and force me to that. And maybe if I just stay adequate and I don't ever like get really good, then I can just keep doing this over here. Because if I get too good, then maybe I'm going to get pushed into leadership. And so the people who want to go into leadership, may end up burning themselves out trying to get to leadership. And the people who don't want to get into leadership may end up, slacking off and not being good employees because they don't want to be in leadership. And so it creates this bad messaging in the organization overall of, what it takes to get onto the leadership track.
It's just a thought, Sharon, just throw this one out there. But if you set up as your annual goal to be less than adequate, with adequate being your stretch goal, then you achieve adequacy. Like, look, I'm crushing it here. I'm exceeding my goals for the year, Sharon.
Adequate and mediocre should not be on any sort of goal setting anything.
Yeah. So I do think that again, promoting the wrong people, it kind of sends the wrong signal that this is what I have to do to advance. I mean, what I've seen frequently is that they're failing in the leadership side of it. They don't get that. What they do is they kind of find their way back and they take on all these these individual contributor tasks because they can still be recognized as doing that. So they are working more and longer hours doing the IC work. And there's always some degree of IC type work and tasks that need to be done, especially with like line managers, lower down, small team managers. But, the more senior that you get, the more, the larger the organization. Like when I was managing, I think 40 people was about the largest that I've, in my experience, and, in managing. And I was, all of my time, 100% was managing the people. I did not have the bandwidth to do any of the other things or to do more than give direction, instruction on those other things. There was no opportunity to even micromanage. It was a busy time. Especially several times in my career now, 5 or 6 times where I've had peer organizations merged in with mine. I know this is a different discussion, but again, it was, it's not like there's time to go and do the IC work that I was happier doing a lot of that work and didn't have the stresses associated with that. That's always, sends a dangerous message if you allow that to go on, because people see that, such and such was promoted up into that role. They're really still doing their old job or a big chunk of it and managing. If that's the only way to move up, it discourages teamwork and empathy, because people, they learn the wrong lessons. They're working harder alone, not smarter together, which is a key part of what you want your managers, your leaders to do.
Yep, exactly.
So thinking about the pitfalls. So if left uncorrected, burnout, number one, you're going to burn out those people. They're not going to have jobs
because they're doing 2 and 3 full-time jobs. Come on.
Right. And so that you are, I think, the removing your star performer and then putting them into the wrong role to where they're not able to. It's like you're losing your star person and you don't have a great leader.
Yeah, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit, I think, when you do that, as opposed to training somebody up, equipping them for leadership, and then making sure there's, a plan to backfill them and things like that. Because otherwise you have this kind of instability that happens in your team. And then it's like, wait, now all of a sudden they have to pick up the slack. This person is now, making the call and they don't know what they're doing. It just causes all kinds of chaos within the team.
Yeah. I think you hit it spot on too. So like I've seen many top performers burn out the moment that they're promoted. They're moved in those roles. I mean, they knew it wasn't going to be fit. They were doing it for the wrong reasons, money, and, just because they thought they had to go and do that. Like they could say no, they could stay in this other role. So they go from this mastery to this, chaos, mayhem overnight. They're trying to do their old job and lead at the same time. And the key here is without training, without support, without that network, without preparing them for that, it's not a promotion. It's more like a setup. Like you're giving them rope to hang themselves out there. It's like, are you hoping for them to fail? You're not really giving them, and this is an upper management leadership executive failure. You're not preparing people properly to step into these roles.
Well, and you're also not watching for capable leaders, because if you're only focused on performers, on people who are high achievers in their specific thing, you're not actually looking for the leadership roles, and you're not nurturing and skilling up and training those leaders. And so ultimately, if you're dependent on your star performers for leaders, then you're going to very quickly run out of those if you burn through all your star performers. And then what are you left with?
Yeah. I remember about 20 years ago and I was dealing with managing the partner relationship with this consulting group, one of the top 3 consulting firms back then in the early 2000s. And we worked together. We did client site visits all the time. I remember, driving, and he was sharing the miserable parts of his job and managing. He had about 20 consultants and just hated it. I remember, so I went over and took a job over with Hewlett Packard, and he had also moved over to Hewlett Packard, and we didn't work together, did different divisions and stuff around it. But I was there as a consultant. He moved over as a full-time employee and an individual and contributor. And all I heard from him was, he's like, this is like the best decision ever. I've got the work. I know what I'm working on. I'm doing. I'm not having to sit through and deal with what other people are doing or not doing. And it says, I still am able to have dinner with my family and not worry about all this other stuff. And again, it was something where he recognized that about himself, that he needed to change and to move into a different role. And so it's great that an HP, I mean, I don't know what that was for me. It was 20 years ago. I don't know what the culture is like now there, but they had a great culture for that, and recognizing that and trying to find, in fact, the leadership that I worked with would talk all the time about finding the right fit and adjusting if it wasn't the right fit, working with employees. Company hires, they're here, they're our employees. Let's find the best place for them. I just loved that approach to, I mean, it wasn't just an HR, it was in the culture of the organization.
Yeah, I definitely think that organizations that have leadership programs where they're watching for people, they're paying attention to those things, they're nurturing them, they're skilling them up, definitely have healthier amounts of good leaders and, less pulling those rock star players out than the ones that don't. As a consultant, I've seen it. I've just seen all these different places, and I've seen the ones that do it well, and I've seen the ones that don't do it well. And yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking of, how do you overcome this? Like, what are the strategies? What are the approach? What are practical ways to approach this? And I think the number one thing is that you have to formally look at, have it documented, like questions to ask, but in a process for assessing leadership readiness. The best time to assess leadership, the potential for leadership, is before the promotion, not after. Don't find out after, because there's technical capability, and not after they failed in that new role. You need to ask the hard questions. Do they want to lead? That's an important question. Do you want today? And then to train them, track them, like, do they actually have empathy? There's plenty of people that are technically competent, that have the high EQ, but they don't have that, the empathy towards that to really be the right person in that role, depending, on the culture of the organization, whether it needs to be very hands-on as well. And it's very different, for example, from managing a very senior team, a small senior team with experts, with people that know what they've been doing for a long time, and one that's college hires and new people in there and constant turnover. and more transactional. Different management methods are needed for those different skill sets. I'd say the latter, where it's more transactional and stuff, to have somebody who's tougher, even like a military background that has structure, that has that structured approach to things. Another important question is, and I don't know how you ask this, Sharon, maybe you haven't answered this, but how do people, are they prepared to handle some of the emotional weight of other people's performance and issues, and having them, that side of it? I mean, it's EQ, it's empathy, it's kind of all those things, but are they also strong enough to be able to not internalize that stuff and make themselves miserable based on the hardships of other people?
Well, and we've talked about this in previous episodes. It's that whole crazy idea of knowing your people and understanding them, and, working with them, and what makes them tick, and what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and things like that. I think if you already are having those conversations and you already understand, where their zone of genius is, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, where their frustrations are, you're going to have probably tried a few little things to see how do they like this? How do they perform here? One of the best places that I really felt this, and I've talked about this in the past, but I worked for Black & Veatch for a while, and I loved the fact that I was part of their excellence organization, part of their Six Sigma program. And one of the things that I think that they did well is that we got to kind of rotate in, working on small projects, and then having leadership roles on those projects to see, is this even something that you want to do? And is it something that you're good at? And how do you feel about it? How's your team feel about it? And then at the end, we would deconstruct that and say, how did this go? And is this something that you would like to do again? And I think when you work with your people and you understand things and you're giving them small opportunities already, then which ones are going to kind of go to the next gate, right? Okay, you liked this, you did well at it, your team gave you good feedback, okay, let's skill you up again and let's see how you do the next time, instead of simply black and white saying, you're good at your job, you're gonna be a manager now, right? I think knowing those people and working with them gives you that ability to do that.
Yeah, I think that program, it's very similar. What we've all heard of these programs. Large companies will have them where they'll get a bunch of Ivy League MBAs that'll come through, and there's this kind of fast track program for them, leadership program, where they spend a little bit of time in a bunch of different divisions, learning different aspects of the business, seeing if there's a fit, if there's a passion, or just they're drawn to one area over the others. And there needs to be something similar for people that you're considering to move up in those roles, and that you have discussions around it. But it almost could be something as simple as, like I mentioned earlier, of this mirroring program, that where you're ghosting, people, or you're sitting in watching roles. But I like this, like what you did experience, where you're actually involved in projects and leading projects. Something super simple would be have this person lead an initiative with their peers there in the team, in the organization, see how that works. And you could test out other people as well that are, maybe less likely, but might be a better fit for the management role of that, and get feedback from folks. It's not something you rush into that decision. There needs to be some kind of, I know I don't want to use the word, but test for that.
Like, some sort of way to try before you buy, right?
Right.
Before
you go. Yeah.
I also think that you need to have, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, you mentioned it earlier, there also needs to be a path for people who say, I tried that, I don't think it's the right fit for me, but I really would like to excel in a technical role. And I do have a really good example. I worked at a software development company for a while, and one of the developers there had made that decision. He basically was like, I really love what I do. I want to be the best in my field, and was pursuing a PhD in a specific area so that he could be a master at his craft. But he didn't necessarily want to be a manager, right? He was just like, I want to excel in this technical area, but I don't necessarily want to be a manager. And what was really great about that opportunity for me is I got to see the team support him in being the best at what he did and really, studying up on this. And it's a rarity. I'm going to be really honest. I grew up in software development. I've been working in software development for 30 years. And it's a rarity to see a group support an independent contributor in a technology area all the way to the PhD level, where they're really interested and really focused on a specific thing, and not pressure them into being a manager. It's a really rare thing. And it was a really neat thing to be able to see somebody be good at that. But I think you do need to have that track for your ICs.
Yeah, I agreed. Look, if you want new managers to succeed, you have to give them structure, have a program, mentorship, feedback, time to grow, to share what they've learned. Because leadership, it's an instinct to it. There are some people that are natural born leaders. We've all heard that phrase our entire lives. But it's a discipline. So it is something people don't just figure it out, especially in relation to the culture of your organization. They learn it through guidance and experience. They may have tendencies. They may be natural born leaders, but they still need to develop the skills. The timing also needs to be right.
Yeah, no, and I think about this, like there are people who are born with artistic ability, right? They tend to draw well, write well, be creative. That does not make them a master artist, right? It doesn't make them a master writer. It doesn't make them a master poet. It just means they're kind of good at some things naturally. And same thing, right? You have to hone your craft. And so I think for both leaders and ICs, I think it's really important to define what those expectations are, create systems around it so that they know what goals they have set for them, and what behaviors are expected as part of that role.
Yeah, it just made me think. I was, my first major. I had 3 years as industrial design, focused on product design. And I would do these technical drawings and, might spend 8, 10, 12 hours on a single drawing. I hated it. I hated it. So I'd see like now my brother-in-law is an illustrator. My older brother, who is an amazing illustrator as well and cartoonist. And it just came naturally to go and do the things. And I would sit there and be like, and I hated it. But then I spent time over in the doing graphic design this is in the late 80s. So it was on Macs is the only place you could do a lot of that work, and typesetting and all of that, and working for the on campus and off campus, 2 different newspapers, doing advertising design. Loved that aspect of design, that skill. But then where I found my passion was over in marketing and management and moving that direction. And so it's like I found the path for that, and it just fit. And there are people that a couple companies have tried to fit me into technical, like train me to be like a coder. I've shared this all numerous times, where one company wanted me to become a COBOL programmer, and there was high demand, but they said, look, we think you have the logic, the aptitude. I know. I wish I had said yes to that, Sharon. Because leading up to Y2K, I had friends that were making $300 an hour or more, and doing really well and retiring early. So, they were, I would say, miserable doing a lot of that work, but the payoff was there.
Yeah.
But best practices for this. So I like we do this with our structure here with these episodes. If you're new to the show, we go through and each of the episodes are structured the same way. And so things that you've done that have worked to help people, find the right leaders and promote the right people.
Yeah, I definitely think, you need to know your people and understand. And I always say I look for aptitude and attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do they know how to do it? Are they good at it? Are they skilled at it? And also, are they interested in it? Right. And if they don't have a good attitude about it, then it doesn't matter if they have aptitude or not, because you want them to want to do it and you want them to be able to be good at it. And so we're looking for people that have that aptitude and attitude for leadership, not just specifically the skill that they already have, and then build around that.
Yeah, because there are also, I mean, more in my side of the world is, they're really good project managers. So they are good at a lot of the interactions, the communications, all those things. That still does not equal a manager or leader skill. Mm-hmm. And so it's still the conversation that you need to have there. But I think that the smartest organizations, they recognize this, that leadership is a craft. And so they're constantly looking for and giving people opportunities to self-identify or be identified by somebody else, mm-hmm. For this management leadership track. But that you then give them options. It's not the only way to move up. So talent doesn't get trapped. It really multiplies. People see, hey, I can go figure out, hey, is it the right thing for me?
Well, and the best organizations also have mentoring programs of some sort, so that leaders are already building relationships with other leaders. They're identifying them. They're mentoring them up. They're thinking about succession planning long before they need to think about succession planning.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm just writing down, because that's another topic.
That's a great topic.
We need to include in the series here, succession planning.
Yeah.
But this is a major thing where I think it's a massive failure. Not enough leaders are thinking about succession planning. Who takes over next? Who can I recommend for this role?
Well, and it's a type of knowledge hoarding, right? Yeah. It's a type of hoarding of, I want my role and I'm not going to share that role. And if I train somebody up or mentor somebody up, they're going to kick me out of my role.
Yeah, there's I think another mistake, and this is potentially another topic, is that managers that try to hold people down or back because they're afraid of losing them because they're their star employees.
There's that too.
And yeah. So there is there's probably another topic right in that one right there.
I've definitely been in that boat many times.
Yeah. And it's I've seen the same thing where I actually, had a manager who admitted that they liked hiring, more senior people, kind of almost lying to them, if not outright lying to them about what the role was, to try and get more senior people into these roles that were really more junior roles. And to get even more overly qualified people for the roles that could do more, but they were tricked, lied to, and so they felt
that's not good.
No loyalty to the manager. Yeah, so it doesn't work out long term.
No.
But yeah, I'd say that I like the mentorship programs, peer coaching programs. Again, sitting side by side, learning other roles. That's a fairly common thing. To do succession planning, to ask right out. Like when I've been a manager of managers in a director role, and saying to the other people managers that reported to me is like, who's next up? Who do you see on the horizon? And there may not always be that person, but be thinking about that. And then what can we do? And then talking about, if you've identified people that are potentially there, start figuring out, what can we do? What kind of projects, what additional tasks could we give to test the waters with this person?
Yeah. And I think most importantly, you need to have a way to track leadership development. I think this is something, I was just having this conversation about something, with a client this week around change management, is like, it's very difficult sometimes to have a tangible way to keep track of this growth. And so you have to have some sort of metric, ROI, engagement scores, whatever it is that you're going to use to say, is this person a good leader? Are they doing their job? Are they hitting the things that we set up for them? You have to have a way to manage that and track that just as much as you would track IC contribution stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny thinking about calls to action. What can people go and do here? the first thing to do is like always the answer. Always the first thing we suggest, that Sharon and I suggest, is audit. What are we actually doing today? What do we have a process? What does that look like? If you're not familiar with that, what's being done in other teams? Maybe if it's not being done company-wide, maybe other peer organizations have a process in place. So go become aware of what kind of performance and leadership readiness training is going on.
And if you don't have a mentorship program, set one up, start mentoring people yourself. I mean, mentoring programs are one of the absolute best ways to identify and grow leaders.
The last one is giving people path. I mean, going in and talking about career path. I mean, obviously this is not something that a manager can do individually, even the leadership. You need buy-in from multiple organizations there. But having a simple model of how employees can go that individual contributor route or go into management. Here are the options. Here's the skill set. Here's what's required. And then if there's interest in growing either way, let's talk about it with your manager. Should have that conversation with you and let you try things out. If they just don't believe you're ready or capable of that, and you believe you are, then that's sometimes an indicator, like maybe that's not the team or the company for you to go look into other opportunities. I just think it's sad, Sharon, when people feel like my only opportunity to grow is if I leave the company. That's a massive mistake. There needs to be a path.
Yeah, there absolutely needs to be a path both ways.
Yeah. Well, that's it I know we could keep talking about this one. I think there's a lot in there. Good topic. Yeah. But please be sure to follow us out on, again, our brand new YouTube channel, trying to get our 4,000 followers over on one channel to move over to the new channel. So we can't do it. You've got to do it. Make the effort, people. Go in, subscribe, click the notifications bell. But we'll be back next Monday with another episode at 9 a.m. as always. In the meantime, you can find past episodes out on YouTube under Project Failure Files. And hope to see you next week.
See you next time.
See you later.
Guys. Bye.
Bye.